stop! Yeah! And if you don't like it, you better take your ass up to the snooty box, because this is the loud spot! Okay, see you later.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Loud Spot. I'm your host, Sebastian Cosme, right out of Oklahoma City. Today we have Brian from MVK Music Group out of Orlando, Florida, correct?
That's correct.
How are you, man?
I'm doing well. I'm trying to battle the heat out here, but otherwise doing really, really well. So
I'm so jealous that you're in Florida, right? Like, I love the weather in Florida.
yeah, I love the weather too, but sometimes, it gets to the point where it's like, it's 90 degrees or 80 degrees, but it feels like it's 100, and 40. So it's,
The humidity.
So there's good parts and bad parts of it. Yeah, for sure.
So MVK Music Group, I think I know what that stands for, but let's have you explain what MVK stands for.
Yeah, so MVK itself doesn't actually stand for anything in particular. I kind of get around to how we came up with the name. So we do co-own my business partners and I co-own a secondary company that was started before MVK called Maverick Apparel Company. Music themed apparel. We basically sell to the fans, and we endorse bands all across the US, over in Europe and the UK and whatnot. So we kind of did that as a branding tool. And while we were building out MVK, we didn't really have a name for it at the time. And we were kind of sitting around thinking about it. And, we were like, what about Maverick Music Group? And we kind of said, well, wait a minute. Madonna owns a record label called Maverick. And we're like, no, we don't want to go down that route. So, we kind of toyed back and forth with some names, couldn't figure out something. And we just said, well, why don't we just call it MVK? Just take the three main letters that kind of stood out in the word and just cut out all the rest of them. And it just became MVK Music Group in that way. So.
Okay, so people don't think I'm lying. I actually did think I might have known what it meant. People would be like, you liar. I thought it stood for like movement something. From the website peeking around, I saw some movement and music. Yeah. So I was putting things in my head together. So anyways, when and how did you wind up getting started with MVK?
Yeah. So, between my business partners, I have two business partners, Jesse and Attila. We kind of had the idea a while back. A lot of us have worked in various aspects of the entertainment industry, done some stuff in music. And I saw, one of the things we noticed, we got to see the good, the bad, the ugly side of the business side of music. And we were sitting around talking while we were, kind of coming up with an idea of what we wanted to do with the music side of business. And said, you know what, the one overall thing that every business was doing was putting themselves first, putting the business first, and not really putting the artist first. And so we kind of sat there and we said, okay, we're going to build it on the premise of how we want to differentiate ourselves from everybody else.
Right.
And so, I said, well, why don't we just focus on being artist-centric, being artist first? And, everybody agreed. I mean, it was one of those things where we knew that was going to be our focus. We wanted to disrupt the system as it was, and really, really, truly be a megaphone for artists out there. Mm-hmm. And so we kind of launched with that premise and then started to build everything around that. Part of our culture in the Maverick side was that we were always, we consider our bands, our partners, everybody a family. So we carry that over to the MVK side. So we don't ever refer to our bands as really like one of our customers or clients or just one of our bands. We always say like, it's part of our family, part of the MVK family, part of the Maverick family. So
that's pretty cool. How many artists does MVK currently have? Is it more of a label or management or both?
Not a label. We do get that a lot. And we actually are in the process of, prior to COVID, we were looking at building out a label side as an option. But we are strictly management, artist development, and we offer other services, booking, recording, things like that. But on our roster, we have 15 different artists. So anybody that goes to our website, checks out our artists, the one thing you'll notice is very diverse in genre. We work with basically, on the management side, we work with basically any genre with the exception of pop and hip hop. We've got reggae, country, metal, hard rock, indie, just a little bit of everything on there. So on the management side, that's really our focus is on managing those bands, promoting them, getting them, airplay into festivals, things like that. And then for the bands that we don't manage, we do offer various other services that are available to anyone.
Okay, now why does MVK decide to kind of stay away from pop? Because you're doing country, you're reggae and rock, so
Yeah.
you would think pop would kind of fit in there a little bit. But why choose to not dabble in
Yeah.
on that side?
Good question, and we get that a lot. So it's kind of two reasons. One of those is because we kind of felt like the hip hop and the pop side get a lot of label love. They get all the attention, not so much for the rock, metal, country
Right.
does.
That's so true. Country does, so yeah.
But they don't get a lot of that attention that the labels give to pop and hip hop, and so we kind of wanted to focus our attention on the ones that were needing the most amount of help. And then honestly, between me and my business partners, our background, our knowledge in different genres, none of them really resonated with any of those specific genres. So nothing against them. A lot of talented artists in both of those genres, but we decided to kind of keep our focus, still be diverse, but focus on the other genres.
Yeah, I would say if I was I do the podcast and at first it was kind of, do I want to interview country artists and hip hop artists? It was kind of just rock because that's kind of my main thing is metal and punk rock. So I understand that you know more about the industry on that side, so might as well focus on that side of the industry. So I saw you cater to emerging artists. So does that mean that if someone seeks you out or you seek someone else out, is there a certain criteria you want them to meet before you decide to pick them up?
Yeah. So, during the pandemic, it was crazy enough as it is. During the pandemic, we were getting probably close to 100, if not more, requests for management every month. And, probably because the bands had a lot more extra time to be on the internet researching, doing things like that. And in retrospect, if you look at our roster, we only have 15 artists, right? And we did that. We do that for a reason. One of the things that we wanted to do was make sure that we were giving all of our artists that we do manage our utmost attention. We have dedicated teams. So, collectively as an organization, we manage all of our artists as a group, but we do assign each of them a management team. So one of the head managers and then 2 assistants. And so we wanted to make sure we weren't spreading ourselves too thin. But when we do, we will usually review every submission we get, listen to the music, check out their socials. What we do look for is, a few different things, really. One is, do they have the sound? Do they have the look? Are they marketable? And then we really dig deeper into their music and, how active they are on social media, how active they are with streaming, how much discography they've got out.
Yeah.
And one of the big, I guess, misconceptions with a lot of bands is they think that they need management. And, we tell them, like, don't take offense to this, but you may not be ready for management. And we'll give you feedback and we'll tell you that. But there gets to be to a point where bands do require management. And we kind of, educate them on kind of the steps and what we feel a band is at the point. They've had experience touring. They're, used to playing larger crowds, things like that. And those are the ones that we typically look for. And then it really comes down to, as a collective group, if we feel like one of those bands is in our wheelhouse, then we kind of continue on with the dialogue.
Okay, when you're managing a band, what all goes into that? Because I'm sure there's probably some structuring involved, right? Yeah. And I would say that a lot of bands probably don't know how to structure. Like me, as a podcaster, I wasn't very structured until Sam kind of came involved. And do you find that structure with bands is one of the main things that you have to focus on, especially if they're younger?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure. Because you get bands that are all over the place. Like, they know they want to do this, they want to do that, but they don't know how to get there. And so one of the things that we're big on is communication, right? Going back to the MVK concept, and, one of the things that we noticed was whether it was labels or management companies that were working with artists, they weren't communicating with them. So artists, we were getting feedback that I don't get, I don't hear from anybody, don't hear from my manager. And so we communicate them on a regular basis. We have weekly or biweekly calls. We communicate with them. We do check-ins. But we also, our job is to mentor them through the process. So even the most seasoned touring artists, there's things that they will come to us and say, hey, I need your input. I need your advice on this. And you do find it varies. I mean, you did mention some of the younger artists, but, we've got some young artists that are actually pretty far advanced in the way that they're thinking and the stuff that they've got, their branding, the way that they do their merchandise. And then some that, could be older, they just don't know, and they've never really they not have been lazy, but they just kind of taken the easy way. And we kind of have to get them on track and say, this is what you need to focus on. We need to make sure that we're staying the course and getting you on pace to kind of take it to the next level.
I'm going to take back what I said about younger artists, because really I feel like with technology, the younger ones are the ones that know how to actually advertise and promote themselves probably better than like the mid 30, early 40-year-olds. You get the 18-year-old, he's doing all the different programs, making his own music videos, all that shit. But then you got the older guys like, how do you do this?
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
I didn't think about that. Yeah, so 15 bands. All right, so 15 bands under your roster. As a management team, is 15 bands, and you have quite a few members on your team under your employees, right? Plus you got 3 partners. Is 15 bands, is that a lot to manage? And what would you say the sweet number of we get this many bands we don't want anymore? Is there a limit to that?
Yeah, so very good question, right? So right now we kind of we decided that we're at our, I don't want to say limit, but we're kind of, it would have to be a good situation for us to continue to expand on. Now, does that mean we're not going to take on more bands? Definitely you're going to take on more bands, but we want to do it. We want to sustain our growth. And so as we look to hire on more artist managers and get people on board, then we can start to expand and grow from there. A lot of people don't realize there's a lot that goes into managing a band. Just one, even if it's a solo artist, working with releases, planning PR and press releases, scheduling out tour runs, just the day-to-day things that come up, making sure that they get approval for licensing, just so many different things that, you don't think about, that you deal with on a day-to-day basis. So like my days are consumed between dealing with stuff outside of the artist directly and with the artist. Obviously I want to make sure that all of the ones that I work with directly are handled and things are moving along, smoothly and effectively, but it's a lot of work. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So I know like Attila tonight, he had 2 of his bands had called back to back. So he had, one of our bands Venturous and then one was Seasons. And, so sometimes we don't finish up until 11, 12 o'clock at night. Where some of our artists are on the West Coast, so we have to kind of obviously work around their schedules as well. So
because you're on East Coast time in Orlando.
Yeah. So we're on the East Coast time. Yeah.
So you're about 9 o'clock for you over there.
That's correct. Yep.
So, and I got a question, man. So, I just kind of think of things when I ask them, do you have to put out a lot of fires when you're doing, like, do bands call you, like, arguing like you're their dad? Like, he doesn't want to do this. Does that happen a lot?
Yeah. Actually, it does. I mean, I will say our bands are they're pretty civil and they get along really well. They're mature, professional. But, you do get situations where you have to kind of, jump in and handle a disagreement or, there were bands we worked with in the past that are no longer in a roster that we basically had to play the parent and be like, you're not going to do this, sit in timeout, basically, here's how things are going to work. But, like I said, I think we've gotten better as a company of realizing the types of bands, who they are before we start to take them on and seeing how far along they are, what their thought processes are, where the chemistry is between the artists themselves, the band members. So that's really helped us because we didn't want to make it a point of really being thorough with our selections so that we kind of scale that down. And, there's always going to be times when you have to put out a fire.
Sure.
That's to some point inevitable. But I think if you can do your pre-work and make sure that you know who you're going to be dealing with ahead of time and their dynamic, you save yourself a lot of headache.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people that want to get into management really don't understand, like you have to put yourself out there as a manager. You can't just be like, I'm going to help book your shows. So my next question is, let's say you have a band you've been working with for quite a few years. Let's say the band, they want to kick someone out of the band. For some reason, it's not working out with this particular member and they need a new bass player or new guitarist or whoever.